Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign,
Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 9.
Celebrations! Welcome. This is episode 446 of the Clive Barker Podcast. And good morning, everybody, except for Jose. Good afternoon.
Yes. Hi, Brian. Hello, Nina and Ed. Ed Martinez of Cenobium and special effects artist who worked in Dead Pit, among other things.
Yeah, I'm your blind podcaster from the San Francisco Bay Area, here with my wife, Nina.
Hello.
Hey.
Thanks for joining us, guys. This is going to be a special one because this takes us back to 1989 to California. A lot of interesting movies were coming out of that place, and this one we're going to be talking about the Dead Pit. It's a zombie movie, a part of our A through Z of horror recommendations, initiated by Stephen Jones with the book Clive Barker's A through Z of Horror. And we just kind of got stuck on the Z for zombie, right, Ryan?
Yeah, not X for zombie.
Not X for zombie. I posted that yesterday in our page, and I was like, oh, we're going to do X for zombie. And you were like, you kind of messed it up.
That's a different kind of zombie movie.
Yes. Zombie.
Yeah. Well, and Roger Boys, who is used to be on our podcast, he has Dr. Zombie. That starts with an
X.
Yeah.
In Florida, right. He's a horror host in...
Zephyrillis?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
We
anyway...
almost had an X rating because of the breasts in the film and
Really?
the gore, yeah.
Wow,
There's like one titty in the movie.
I know, and that's like, they'll do that on PG-13 movies.
I'm watching the DVD version from the double DVD. I think, Ryan, you bought the Blu-ray.
Yep, I've got the Blu-ray.
Nina and Ed, you guys are watching the DVD version as well, correct? Which is the same.
Actually, I think we're watching the Blu-ray also.
Okay, cool.
So where mine starts is as soon as you hit play, it's got the State Institution for the Mentally Ill sign, like right there in your face. So is that's kind of where we're all gonna sync up right there on the sign for the institution.
Which is ironic because it's a fake sign.
Yeah.
There's no signs like that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the real sign just said Agnews State Developmental Hospital
Center
or something.
Yeah. You probably don't want to have big letters saying mentally ill on the front of your building.
Right. And we couldn't use the real name of the place,
Yeah.
Sure.
This sounds more menacing.
Yeah, Agnews Insane Asylum. It doesn't exist anymore, but I think Sun Microsystems moved into that place at some point, and in 2021, they were knocking down still a few parts of it, I think. There's an article which we'll link in the show notes where you can see the last photos of Agnews Insane Asylum in the middle of a bunch of rubble, so I'll add those to the show notes.
We went there not that long ago before I lost my sight, and it was the main building, the clock tower building, and the long drive that had all the palm trees was still there, but all the other stuff had been turned into Sun Microsystems. They had bulldozed it and made brand new construction of buildings and such.
Yeah. I think the clock tower might still be around.
Yeah, I think it became a historical landmark or something.
That's right.
You mean the water tower?
But there's still
the clock tower. You see the front of the building that has a tower with a clock?
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So for people
that's
that
when
are
you made a model of that and everything.
If you want to follow along, you can buy the movie on Blu-ray is the most recent version. And I believe it's also for rent and I didn't double check this, but I'm pretty sure this is how I watched it the last time I saw it. You can rent it on like iTunes and Amazon Prime and stuff, or buy it to download. And I think I rented it last time because I know that I've seen it before, but I didn't have a copy, so that must have been what I did. But I can't remember.
Also, if you want to sail the high seas, it's also on YouTube, I believe.
Sail the high seas. Ed, was this one of the first movies you worked in?
Well, it was the first 35 millimeter feature film that I worked in, but I had done other stuff on, music videos and short films, and I never was given the reins like this.
Yeah.
Well, during the audio commentary, they had a lot of high praise for how you did the special effects with the budget that you had, like how you were able to stretch it and make it really good for the amount of money that was available.
Yeah, they were very kind, and also the time. It was a very short amount of time.
Oh, yeah, right.
I think they wrote the script in 3 weeks, and then they shot the movie in 3 weeks, which is kind of crazy.
Yes.
Well, I guess having one location helps.
Yes, definitely. And for free, basically.
Right, because it was on the tail end of the other production, was it not?
Right. They kind of were crossing over from this one called Deadlock.
Yeah, with Jeremy Slate was also in Deadlock. And then, for example, there was that other movie. That movie also had the guy who's the bomb expert in this movie, right?
The Sean Connery of the 80s.
One of the patients that helps our Jane Doe. Yeah.
I thought Sean Connery was the Sean Connery of the 80s.
Well, he's the new Sean Connery of the 80s. Some poster or something on for Deadlock said that.
Oh my God, that reminds me. Did you guys watch the trailers that came on the Blu-ray? There's
for the other films. The other films?
One of them is like Swayze, and it names all these names, but they're like that's not Patrick Swayze. It's some other guy. So they're
you got to bank on the recognizability of the name. Yeah.
I mean, those movies of the 80s, there were so many, low budget films coming out back then.
Yeah. It was weird. I didn't. It's like I don't know these movies at all. I don't remember these things.
Yep, some of them sneak up on you.
Yeah.
You know that Agnews Insane Asylum, which I think at some point it was called the Agnews Insane Asylum. Then they turned it into the Developmental Center. But it goes back to the late 1800s. 1885.
So, they weren't so careful about what they named things that far back.
Yeah.
According to the Wikipedia article, in 1885, it was known as the Great Asylum for the Insane.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
it became part of Santa Clara.
Words change their meaning and become derogatory over time.
Sure.
Yes. Like the word idiot used to be. Idiot used to be a classification, not an insult.
Right.
and retarded.
Really? It was never an insult?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, no, a long time ago it was just one of the categories of how you classify somebody's intelligence.
Yeah, or dumb.
Like retarded also.
Yeah.
Dumb meant someone who couldn't talk, but then it became someone who is not smart. And
they used to say deaf and dumb. Or blind, deaf and dumb.
Yeah, and retarded is not okay anymore. Pretty recently, it got taken out of the
dictionary or whatever.
Yeah, taken out of the common usage for classification of But the word really means like held back.
Even films, like look at the one with Robert Downey Jr. where he's playing a black guy, and he's like, never go
Thunder.
full retard.
And he is in blackface, but it's when you contextualize the blackface in Tropic Thunder, it's not insulting or offensive. It's more.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. It's pretty funny. Yeah. It's not like derisive or.
People
I feel like if
too seriously now.
Yeah, if someone made like a movie about, let's say, what was that white guy that sang in blackface back in the 50s?
You mean Al Jolson?
Al Jolson. Yeah, if someone was making a movie, I was talking to Sarah the other day about
the story of Al Jolson.
Yeah, I was
still do the blackface.
Yeah, and we both agree that probably because it would be depicting something that actually happened.
Accuracy.
Yeah. And the guy used that makeup, so maybe that would be an acceptable use of blackface. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get in there.
What's not acceptable is people doing it and thinking it's okay, But it's like in Tropic Thunder, the whole point of it was like, whoa, that's
it's not okay.
It's not cool
to hold up a mirror to society and stuff.
Yeah,
but it's. Let's not get into that can of worms.
Sure.
It's not. Yeah, it's not. There's none of that in Dead Pit.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There's
all right.
face.
So let's get started. Let's synchronize our watches and our VCRs or Blu-rays.
Decoder cards.
And so, like we said before, we're paused at the very beginning where there's the big sign that says State Institution for the Mentally Ill, and then we'll
got it right,
unpause.
Nina?
Yep, I am there.
Okie
All
dokie.
right. Who wants to do the countdown?
You go,
Ed.
Joe.
Okay,
Go.
sure.
You go.
All right, so 3, 2, 1, hit play. There we go.
Here we go. I'm going to turn my sound down a little bit. It might come through on the microphone.
So the original Agnews Developmental Center in the 1800s actually was destroyed in 1906 by an earthquake.
Right.
And
it was very, very, devastating to that building. Those buildings. There was lots and lots of patients there.
Sure.
And many of them were killed, and they ended up making a big, pit grave, like a mass grave for the people that got killed. And then another
There's the
story
director.
about it. Yes,
Fred
he's
Leonard.
playing an insane.
Yeah.
He's playing
Yeah.
an insaniac. He wanted to be in the film, do an Alfred Hitchcock cameo.
Yeah.
This is a little bit like,
And then his name comes right after he goes off the
his
screen.
appearance.
Yeah.
When you and
This is
Brett had
almost a-
black hair.
I like this guy that's like, Doc, hold my calls.
Yeah.
And in reality, he was like not even the kind of guy who would be in an office or a business or anything. Look at his hair;
Sure.
he's kind of shaggy hair. He was like a totally hippie stoner guy.
So here's Jeremy Slate and Dr. Ramsey, which was based on a Daniel Herschel Lewis. No, what was it?
Herschel Gordon Lewis.
Herschel Gordon Lewis. Yeah, there was a movie with a character called Fuad Ramses, right? Was
Right.
a villain.
Fuad
Blood
is his
Feast.
first name. Ramses is his last name.
And for this one, I think Brett Leonard and his producer wife, they decided to go with Dr. Ramsey in
Right.
tribute to that Dr. Ramses Fuad.
And also the Egyptian motif, the fact that his scarab ring, is magical powered scarab ring. And, in the movie Blood Feast, he's an Egyptian caterer, who does high class parties, but he's a cannibal.
Yes.
So he kills people and serves, human food, to other people, and they don't know they're eating that,
We got the first eye trauma image here with Dr. Ramsey performing a transorbital lobotomy. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You researched into the instruments that were used for that, right?
Oh yeah, not only that, but I went to a medical library in San Francisco, and they had stuff, that you couldn't take it home with you, but you could check it out and go sit in a booth and look at it all. And they even had like a 3D ViewMaster that you could, there was like a book that had ViewMaster reels in it of brain surgeries and stuff. Like I could put
Really?
that in the ViewMaster, and hold it up to the light and click and see in full color, an autopsy type situation where they're operating, and it gave me great reference.
So they had like
I didn't know there was
slides and
anything
stuff?
for the ViewMaster that wasn't for kids.
Well, it's not. It was in a medical library, and like I said, you couldn't check it out and take it home with you. It was the kind of thing where it was only for medical students, to use.
I had no idea they made stuff for the ViewMaster like that.
And here we have Cheryl
3D
Lawson's
photography.
credit.
I had
As
like
Gene
Star
Brown.
Wars and Land of the Lost on my ViewMaster.
Oh, me too. I had Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, and, Bambi, and all kinds of stuff.
It's funny. I used to have a flashlight just like that one, silver, chrome, and then the red red plastic thing around it. That was back in the 80s. I guess those were popular. So he saw Jeremy Slate's character saw a patient being carried by someone with scrubs. So now he's following the trail of blood to what apparently is a broom closet.
So he's got brown hair in the flashback, and then he'll have gray hair when we get to the modern day.
20 years later.
1989. Yeah,
20 years later. But what's interesting is that the guy does a transorbital lobotomy and throws the guy over his shoulder, and the guy is bleeding out.
Yeah.
So he's dragging him down into the basement, and by the time he throws him onto the operating table, he's probably dead already.
Yeah.
A little bit of trivia: the guy who invented the lobotomy was actually a Portuguese doctor called Egas Muniz, and he got a Nobel Prize for that.
Oh,
no
God.
kidding! Wow.
Yeah. Well, but the guy who's it made lobotomy infamous was Walter Freeman, who was an American doctor who adapted the procedure, changed a few things, made it be a little more like quick and easy. Quick and easy. I wouldn't say painless, but quick and easy. And then he just created that big spike that he would, platinum spike or silver spike that he would stick through the inner corner of your eye, and it would just scrape up some parts of your frontal cortex.
Oh.
And
Yep. And that's what we imitated. That's what we made the tool, and it had a hollow, shaft, and you could connect it to a plastic tube, so that it would go up your arm, and I could create a blood, like a hypodermic, big fat thick hypodermic that you could fill with blood, and then squeeze it slowly as it's going into the eye socket, and the metal tube slides into the handle, so it appears to be going into the guy's head, but in fact it's just disappearing up into the handle.
I like that. I like that they used the spiral staircase from the clock tower to make it as if you were going down into the basement,
underground, right?
Yeah.
Yes. That is not a sterile environment. I'm seeing lots of skulls on the floor, and a rat that apparently belonged to the girlfriend of an extra. So I think it was Caledonia. Her
she
girlfriend
was one of the zombies, right?
Yeah,
right. But it wasn't her girlfriend. It was just it's actually a friend of a friend who came along.
So that mouse was a pet.
Brett Leonard, when he's telling that story, he kind of mixes three people into one.
I like the detail on the man on the table. You put some blood designs on his body, and you have like something that looks almost like a triangle with an eye inside, like the Eye of Osiris.
Oh, yeah, looking for runes. We made, even though it's like in the subtext, the concept of Dr. Ramses is that, many, many years ago, he was in an archaeological dig, perhaps in Egypt, and, he uncovers, like scrolls and grimoires and things like that, and he brings that all back to do his research, and he discovers, like an H.P. Lovecraft story where he's got magical, incantations and like a book like the Necronomicon kind of thing, and that's, in the subtext. We don't really spell it out, but that is the background, why he is Dr. Ramses and why he's got the glowing eyes and the magical ring and all that.
Sure. He just saw the properly named dead pit with the formaldehyde barrels.
Right, and ironically, the dead pit, it's such a weird name, and ironically, there's some fans that way back, in the early '90s, I think, they made their own website and their own, fan thing called the deadpitradio.com, and there's this guy named the Creepy Kentuckian and the other one's named Uncle Bill, and they've been the Dead Pit also for all these years.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a cool name.
Yeah, when you look them up, they have a YouTube channel. They constantly are reviewing films and stuff.
Gerald just shot Dr. Ramsey. And we got this wonderful graphic.
Yeah,
with the Dead Pit title.
And from what I understand, that when they made the American version, they took that out and made a more normal looking title card. That's what he said on the commentary.
If you look at that title card, it is kind of hard to read. Like in other words, as a rule of thumb in good graphic design, you want your title to be very easily to read.
It looks Jaws, it looks like a Guar album cover.
Exactly. It was painted by a friend of a friend. The still photographer was dating a woman who at the time was a painter and an artist, and she went by the title. Her name, was not her real name. She went by A.E. Bunker, and she did that piece of art, and they liked it, so they used it. But when it was finally sold in America to a video company, like Imperial Entertainment, I think was the video company, or Securus Pictures, one of those two companies, I believe they changed the logo. They made the new title lettering art.
Gotcha.
So that was changed. And I kind of agree with it. Like I prefer the more modern, graphic art of just the dead pit,
And here we've got Cheryl Lawson arriving at the hospital as a Jane Doe with amnesia, correct?
Right, in a bus, that's coming from the city or something. Like she was picked up in a vagrant in a park or something.
I love this.
I'm assuming that they changed the title card back for the Blu-ray and DVD just to make it more authentic to the original release.
I'm not sure. I think that the company Code Red that purchased the film, when they went to make a DVD, I think they had to do what was considered remastering. So they this was shot on 35 millimeter celluloid, and so they had a negative or a answer print or something that they went to to create this DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, and so that's where they got that old video. I mean, the old title card, the old artwork was on the original 35 millimeter print. So I think that's what happened. Instead of going to the video company that purchased it for release in America on VHS, they went directly to maybe Brett Leonard's own print or something like that, because Brett Leonard did own a 35 millimeter print, and it did play, in limited release, in various markets here in California.
I love this nurse. I love this.
Kygar.
Yes, this nurse. And I think the other lady that came up, the other nurse, is played by Mara Everett, who's the daughter of the producer.
Right. Gimel Everett.
That's
was
right.
The co-writer of the script and producer, line producer, everything. She was, general cook and bottle washer for the whole project,
Oh, here we get our first tremor.
Yeah.
Earthquake.
Which definitely is made to seem connected to her emotional state.
Yeah.
Right. And also it's a kind of a psychic thing too, where her physical presence in this location, which is where the body of her father has been entombed for 20 years, is now, getting cracked open because of her presence as well. Right.
I was going to say that she has a deeper connection to this place than she knows, but you already kind of gave it away.
Nobody's going to care about spoilers, I think.
Right. I mean, you're watching a commentary track. You probably already watched the movie. I love the lighting from that director of photography, Marty. He did a good job with the lighting and all the slight mist that you see in all of the hallways.
Yeah, the great thing about Marty Collins was that, he knew how to light things properly for this kind of a film. He had very few lighting instruments, but he used gels of color, green and stuff like that. And he would always put, like a shadow, or, he would use Venetian blinds and smoke up the rooms. If there's a slight amount of smoke, you can see the beams of light. If there's no smoke, that's why videos, that people, amateur filmmakers make and stuff, they don't understand that you can sculpt with light. Marty taught me that,
Very good. Very nice.
In the commentary, he talks about, and so, I was paying closer attention to that he used a lot of long takes.
Yes.
Going between from one person to the other, and it's just in tracking along, which is kind of neat.
One of the things that they had to learn as low budget filmmakers was, instead of like having an over the shoulder and then a two shot and then a close up, and then instead of breaking it all up, where that's what you call you have to put it on sticks, which is a tripod, or you have to put it on handheld, like over your shoulder or whatever. What they did was they used Steadicam and a wheelchair for a dolly and stuff, so they could be nimble and move all in one take, all in one long scene. They would have 3 or 4 people deliver lines. They would have the camera moving. It was like ballet.
They had Steadicam work. The cameraman, I think, was called Mark Collins, right?
Marty Collins.
Marty Collins, that's it.
And
of course, genius. Brett Leonard was this his first film?
Yes. Well, not really, in the sense that before
full
this,
feature film.
His first directorial.
Yeah, his first director feature film, where he wrote it and directed it, and his wife produced it and stuff. Gimel they got married. But the thing that I was sold on them, when I met them and when they, sort of pitched me, this project, they played for me. We met in a really nice little kind of bungalow house in Santa Cruz, and they had a nice big TV and stereophonic speaker set up so that it was like a home theater. And they sat me down in front of this TV and they played for me a short film that they made where it was very good. There was helicopter shots. There was audio, where you can hear the helicopter going from the right side speakers to the left side. Like Brett was.
Oh, surround sound.
Yeah, he was using, all the tools in his toolbox, and that film had people like, it had a couple of decent, good actors like Ray Dong Chong was in this short film, and another young actor from the time period, who was like in My Science Project and, stuff like that. I forget his name. I think it was John Stockwell or something like that. Anyways, when I was done watching that short that they showed me and Brett directed it and they produced and wrote it and directed it, I was sold. I was like, if this guy is the one who's going to make this zombie horror film, I'm in,
Look, she's sitting in a couch that looks like Cherry from Pee Wee Herman. A blue couch
with the velour.
Wingback chairs.
He's got one too. Oh yeah, they're facing each other.
What's happening?
Jeremy Slate, he was also in. He has a long career, right? He was in westerns and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, he was in 2 films with Elvis. He was in GI Blues with Elvis and Girls with Elvis. And, in GI Blues, he's the co-star with Elvis where they have a bet, with who can spend the night with this beautiful Italian girl. And Elvis, goes in there and spends the night with her. And she finds out later that it was all a bet.
I see. Yeah. I think he looks really likable and benign in this movie. He looks like a really good, friendly doctor. Especially once his hair is, especially with his hair whiter now, he looks more like a fatherly figure.
And the director Brett Leonard is probably Lawnmower Man. Is that his most famous film?
Well, he's actually known for having, in a way, discovered Russell Crowe. He made the first film with Russell Crowe. Yeah, there's a movie called Virtuosity with Denzel Washington.
Oh, that's right.
It's about a high-tech, like villain of a video game who escapes into the real world, and the Russell Crowe plays that character.
That's right. Wow. That's right. They turn a simulated virtual psychopathic killer, and they put him in a person's body, and then he takes over and goes into the world.
Right.
But I love this lady here that keeps blessing everybody. She's going to be instrumental in the movie.
Oh yeah.
The lady with the
baguettes.
Yes.
With the what do you call this? The thing tied to her head. It's like
it's like a nun's habit.
A wimple, that's called.
Yeah, that's it. But it's really just a what do you call the thing
fabric. It's like a pillowcase or something.
No, I mean the thing that opens in the back that people in hospital, the gown, hospital gown.
Gowns.
Yeah.
The gowns.
But a nun's head cover is a wimple and a veil.
There you go. Wow. There you go.
So the wimple is the tight part that covers your head, and then the veil is the looser part that goes over the wimple.
Yeah. Since these were all patients, they all wore those gowns that are open in the back, but they would wear robes and stuff to cover their ass.
Sure. But I bet they came in really handy with the zombies because that way you could just put gowns on them and just drop blood on the gown and make it all like goopy and messy.
Exactly. In fact, our costume lady was Nina Parker, and she took a whole bunch of these gowns. They were given to us. One of our zombies, actually, a girl named Caledonia, she was a nurse, and she was working at a hospital in San Francisco, and, on the QT, she was smuggling out, gowns and, surgical masks and rubber gloves and all kinds of stuff that we used in the film.
That's hilarious.
A little at a time, she would bring it over, and so it didn't all disappear overnight or nothing. But
right.
we saved a ton of money on, this was a real low budget production. It was like a family. Everybody pitched in and did whatever they could,
So why did she have that particular name, Caledonia? It seems like that was an artistic name. Was she like in other movies or?
No, she was a nurse who heard about it because of, friend of a friend or the casting calls that we put out and stuff. And she was a real punk rocker. She had a motorcycle and she had a leather jacket, like red and blue.
I tried to find out things about Caledonia, but I couldn't really find anything that would connect me to that person. I just asked because her name in the credits is just a single name, Caledonia with a K. So it sounded like so she was a punk rocker and a nurse. Okay.
Yeah, and she had a buzzed head already. Like, in other words, her hair, she had like a star, carved into her head in the hair, very tiny amount of hair, like a military buzz cut kind of. And so, she had like dyed, colored, star on her head. So when the time came, to shave herself skin bald, she had no problem, so it worked out perfect. I mean, the casting call went out, for zombies who were skinheads or who were bald or who didn't mind, shaving their heads. And she was one of them.
So we got this guy that our Jane Doe was talking to. He's going to become kind of like a sidekick / love interest. He's a guy who works with explosives, and both of them seem like they're not supposed to be in such an extreme institution, but they do tend to gravitate towards each other, and they're going to go through this whole story together.
Yeah, it's like they're two of the only kind of normal people that are locked up in there.
Right,
and they gravitate toward each other. But what's ironic is, there's a lot of parallels to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he would be your sort of Jack Nicholson guy,
Oh,
right,
yeah.
right. Sister Claire, she feels the evil.
Yes.
And I like that the Jane Doe keeps seeing Dr. Ramsey show up and just staring up at her window and stuff. It's always a great sight to have someone like in Halloween look out and see Michael Myers standing,
Michael Myers,
or in
Freddy,
Assault on the Precinct. You also see like a guy standing outside, right? And
it's like Freddy or Michael Myers or Jason. Right. Ironically, we knew that in a way we were creating another iconic horror type character, but didn't get too pretentious about it or think about it too much.
And this guy who plays Chris, he was I think also in Deadlock, which was another movie that Jeremy Slate was also into, and I think he was also in Lawnmower Man, and I think he was in another movie.
He was in Die Hard 2 as a co-pilot.
That's it. Yep. Yep.
And also on Baywatch, but I don't know who he played on Baywatch.
Right.
Nina's been doing her homework.
Yeah.
Hey, so it says here that James Hong is cast in this movie. Do you know where James Hong is? Because I totally
No, he's not in this movie.
He's in another one.
There's a movie that
Deadlock. That's right.
No, well, I don't know if he's in Deadlock, but there's another movie that was casting and getting geared up right at the same time as Dead Pit that James Hong was starring in called The Vineyard. And, it got made. It's out on DVD and video.
Yeah. He's also listed in Deadlock.
I was interviewed to do the effects, to work on the effects for The Vineyard. And they had already picked who was going to be in charge on The Vineyard, and they were giving me the opportunity to be the assistant to him. And then I interviewed with Brett and Jamil, and they wanted me to be in charge. And I said, I could either, serve in hell or rule in heaven.
Yeah, we got the infamous shower scene. Hose down shower. Someone had a lot of fun just pointing that right at her chest.
Yeah, I
there we go.
I had to do a hard job there. I'm the one that pulls the monofilament that pops her boobs out.
Oh, I see. This is the nightmarish sequence. It works so well. It's like you see the skin starts coming off of her face, and the nurse is just like got all that giant lipstick on her mouth, and she's just laughing with her mouth open. Cackle. It's so disturbing.
So it sounded like he said that they needed to have that nudity for the German release or something for German audiences.
Well, it's always true that, like in every, Roger Corman movie or, movie of the 80s, it's an exploitation film. We're making a low-budget horror. Look at even, films like Hellraiser and stuff. Look at the sex scenes. It's like it's a staple of horror.
This pair of hands picking up the instrument for the lobotomy A great job on the nails and the paint job on the hands. Dr. Ramsey's hands, of course, you see the scarab ring in his left hand.
Yeah, it's a little crazy that he goes into the supply room, and I guess he's looked at himself in the mirror and knows that his rotted face would be pretty hard to pass. So he gets one of the surgical masks, but he puts on the rubber gloves and pierces the big claws through the tip.
Right. It's hilarious. That particular detail is just really funny.
So we had to sharpen those, and so it would pierce on cue. Could you imagine if we were pulling and it's just stretching and the nails are bending, but it's not poking through?
Sure. Did you have to do a little pre-cuts on them so they could poke through?
No, we actually sharpened the nails real good, so they.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, in fact, I might have even put a X-Acto blade or something in them.
So after the shake, all of the patients have become a little more deranged than usual. They're all becoming very agitated because they can feel the psychic energy that's emanating from the dead pit underneath the facility.
And Dr. Ramsey's just put on rubber gloves and then put the ring over the top of the glove.
Right.
Again, not sterile.
Yeah.
I mean, damn, this lady's got some nice hips. I'll give you that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun the day that they picked out the panties for her. They brought out 3 pairs on a hanger, clipped, to a hanger at our breakfast meeting. And, myself, the director, the producer, and the costume lady brought it out. And I was sitting there with them and they said, "So what do you think, Ed?" And my choice and Brett's choice was the ones that were chosen.
Yeah. They look like
nobody wanted the big baggy granny panties.
No.
Right.
She didn't get a say in it?
No.
They looked like sloggies. I think they were sloggies at the time. I don't know if you guys remember those.
So she's a stunt woman now.
Well, she always was. Even before she did Dead Pit and The Vineyard. She starred in The Vineyard, too. She was, in The Vineyard, there was 8 or 10, beautiful women. She was one of them. She was a victim in The Vineyard. So ironically, she was in the area. She was in town because she's from LA. She was in the area for The Vineyard, and then, found out about the Dead Pits auditions and came over, and, she completely did it, a cold audition, and just blew everybody away.
I do have a quick question here about location and set. It's, when we see the rooms where the mental patients are in, we see that door with a tiny, tiny little window on it and those metal beds. Was that actually how they looked like, the rooms in the facility?
Yeah. I mean,
because they look like cells, right? They look like prison cells.
Cleaning it, because everything had rat excrement and cobwebs and stuff.
Yeah.
And like the bulletin board in what you call, the day room or, the common room or whatever, that was all, faked up with, making it look like each of the patients were, on a thing to get a gold star or whatever, so they made some art direction, set dressing and stuff, but that's it.
The nurse has been taken by Dr. Ramsey, played by Mara Everett.
Jamil's
that's right.
Daughter. Yeah.
So she's going to be one of the first to be reanimated.
Nurse Robbins, I think, is her name.
Right.
This whole facility, they had built back in the day when it was vibrant and full of people. I think they had even stores and shops and stuff. It was almost like its own little campus thing.
Yeah, it was its own little town.
I think it was called Agnews Village.
When we were there, it was still in operation, in some of the wings way far away from where we were shooting. But they had buses like a van type, short bus that would take the patients from building to building for their various things, whether it was meals or activities or
therapy. Whatever. You guys picked some good parts of the building that look brand new, but there's other parts where you definitely see that the paint is peeling and things are coming off the hinges and stuff, but you can always chalk that up to the earthquake damaged the building or something like that. Well, it's just an old building.
This was the 80s and it was closed down in the 60s.
Oh, right. So it was 20 years of abandonment. We got the famous hypnotizing scene here.
Oh yeah.
Did you make that little hypnotist thing?
No, the guys who owned the warehouse where we built the set of the Dead Pit, and where my workshop, my special effects workshop, was inside their little warehouse. And that one guy who co-owned it with Ransom Rideout was our art director, Dan Granette. It was a little company called Ransom Rideout and Dan Granette's, engineering or something. They had welding and machine tools, and he built that little thing out of metal.
I see. It's always a classic thing, right? To be on the doctor's couch and be hypnotized and regressing to childhood. It's kind of a trope in these movies.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes they would use a metronome in other movies,
I think I found the location. It was Granite Rideout Engineering Special Effects Studio in Santa Cruz, California.
Correct.
That's where you guys shot those special effects sequences?
Yes, some of the miniatures were done there. My workshop was there, where we did all the molding and casting and live casting and building of all the prosthetics and everything. And then we switched over to the location, from Santa Cruz all the way over to Milpitas, and there I built another workshop and had a foam baking oven and everything.
You had Guy Conrad help you with the mask for Dr. Ramsey.
Yes,
you had Tim Azario worked on the head, the animated head that I don't think you ended up using. Did you use that head in the? It's the one that kind of sucks. Oh, okay.
Oh, it's a totally different head.
Gotcha.
We built a suck-down head. We built a mechanical head. Unfortunately, that never got finished, so it didn't get seen in the final film. But if it had been, it had blinking eyes. The eyes were white. By that time, if we had gotten it finished, and it had blinking eyes. It had a head that could turn right and left and up and down, and the opening and closing of its mouth.
Wow.
But and I still have it, but it just never got finished. And then we built a whole torso also, and that got finished to the point where we could test with it. And I made a little short that's on my YouTube channel that Nina edited and took all the archival video footage from my collection and put it together with some stills and some artwork, and it shows the process of the last portion of the film, which was a reshoot. We got more money and we were able to do an additional day of filming, and that's when we filmed all that stuff.
It's wild that sometimes there's so much stuff that is done in the effects department that never really gets to be seen properly in the movie. Like, for example, the torso that you guys made for Dr. Ramsey's desiccated corpse
for his demise.
Painted by Mike Wick, right?
Yes.
So we barely see that in the movie. I don't think we see that at all.
See it at all.
Right.
It's not in the movie at all.
And it was made with tape and latex over an actual real skeleton from a medical supply store, right?
Correct.
Nice.
Yeah, Harry Inman, who is another sculptor who is no longer with us, unfortunately. In fact, I wanted to mention there are so many people from Dead Pit that are no longer with us, and including Danny Gotchnauer, who played Dr. Ramses. He passed away not that long ago. And also Jamil Everett has passed away, and she was a producer and co-writer of the film. And Marty Collins, the director of photography, he is no longer with us. He's passed away. So, and also one of my effects guys too. I would, like to dedicate to this, this episode of this podcast, from me anyways, to the rest in peace memory of all these wonderful people who worked on the project.
And Jeremy Slate. And
yes,
absolutely.
Jeremy Slate, another one who's no longer with us.
We've got an orderly who's being threatened now by one of the patients who says he's going to cut his brain out, man.
Yeah, and he was such a nice guy throughout the whole film and everything that, him playing a loony who loses it was really out of character.
I liked one of the first things you guys were talking about, other thing, and I didn't get a chance to mention, but when Gerald meets Dr. Ramsey in the dungeon, he says, "You're a doctor." He's like, "Yeah, I've done life. Now I'm doing death." I love that. I love that line. Hey,
yeah,
why
it's
not?
funny. This film has some decent lines.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I killed him once. I can kill him again.
Kill him again. Yeah.
That's optimistic. Yep.
For dead people, they sure are smart.
He, in fact, did not kill him again. But Brett Leonard became kind of known as, he had a lot of interest in VR and almost like a cyberpunk aesthetic with Lawnmower Man, Virtuosity. Those two movies involve virtual reality, right? So it looks like he was kind of into that. And it's funny because I was looking up his Twitter, and I found out that his daughter posted something to her dad saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm watching The Lawnmower Man on my Apple Vision Pro in VR." And he's like, "Yes, I've come full circle."
Yeah.
Right. Ironically, even before Dead Pit and while working on Dead Pit in the earliest phases, he told me all this stuff. Like I knew all about, from him, about things like, at this time in the 80s, even desktop editing, there was no home computers that were powerful enough to do desktop editing at home. You had to use, film, or, if it was on video, it was like we made like that stupid, superhero martial arts film that we made, was done with 2 VHS machines where you stop and, turn the next one on. It had glitches in between. We had no fancy editing back in the day. But Brett Leonard knew all about George Lucas and the edit droid and the concept of doing non-linear, desktop computer editing and stuff. And so he was waiting and ready when all that technology became available.
Oh, here's Dr. Ramsey entering the padded room with the guy who was threatening the orderly earlier. And how do you guys do the red eyes? Is it just done onto the
effects? Optical effects done with an optical printer,
overlaid
in post-production with animation cells. There's a guy in he was in Oakland in the Jack London Square area. I used him too on another film after, this was, where you take cells, either black and white, white paper with black ink to cover in the eye area, and then you re-photograph that on the animation stand and then double print it with the optical printer to create the burned in glow effect.
It works really well.
It's the traditional standard technique used for over 100 years with all, special effects, the 2 pieces of film, married into one with an optical printer.
So Dr. Ramsey created a diversion. He let the patient go. Now the orderly is chasing him. And, great shots of the outside at night. So this was shot around 3 weeks in the summer, in May, June, July?
Actually, I forget exactly what month it was. It was all a blur.
May or June, I think.
The film went for those 3 weeks, and then when it ran out of money and we wrapped, it wasn't really finished in the sense that, it didn't have the ending that we are now all familiar with. And what ended up happening is that they took the film's, show reel to the Milan Film Festival, and a representative pre-sold, the rights for foreign market, and that gave us enough money. I think they made like $300,000 or something right off the bat, and so that gave them the money that they needed to pay for the music, to pay for the editing. They went to Lucasfilm. They went to Skywalker Ranch and rented a bungalow and stayed at the ranch while they were doing the editing, and invited me one day to come and have lunch at Skywalker Ranch, because they had enough of the footage cut where they wanted to show me some of the effects and stuff. And so I went down there, and it was so cool. They brought me into one of the editing suites and showed me the footage. And then there was another couple of people in the other suite right next door, and they were working on like Tucker or something, for Lucas.
Oh, A Man in His Dream.
Yeah. And they said, when we take breaks, we usually switch rooms and we watch what you guys have been doing, and you guys come in and watch what we've been doing. And so they came in and they watched what we had been doing, for the Dead Pit ending, editing sequence. And they looked at that meltdown and all that stuff, and they went like, "Man, that's your money shot," and gave some really nice compliments, from professionals like that. It was great.
Yeah, the original ending was Dr. Ramsey with Melt. I think Didn't you guys use that melting effect shot in one of the zombies' deaths in the movie? I think I see that.
No, that was always, the death of that zombie. What you do see, though, on the 18-minute trailer is all we had at that time. Like, in other words, I did make a different makeup, and I did make a different fake head, that did melt, but it wasn't nearly as good,
Gotcha. So he's still looking for that patient who ran into the decrepit clock tower, and I like that there was a whole bunch of graffiti on the closed door, on the barricaded door, saying "Keep out."
Yeah,
and you see all the paint is peeling.
When we made the miniature, we had to duplicate that "Keep out" and stuff.
Yeah. So did you guys just have the extras come and graffiti that barricade?
No, that was the art director. Ransom right out.
Oh, here's the dentistry department. He's in the dentistry chair.
The drill in the eye.
Drill in the eye. Another eye
trauma. Here I am blind, and I've done so many eye traumas. In another film I worked on, I made a blind zombie. I mean...
I particularly like when you used the milky white contact lenses for Dr. Ramsey. I think that works really well.
Oh, yeah. I still have those to this day. In fact, we have multiple different kinds.
No, those didn't last.
Oh, but we still have contact lenses.
We have contact lenses, but you used them on another film, and the guy that they tore, and the guy replaced them for you.
Yeah, those things don't last forever.
I know, because I had to wear them.
Were they hard contacts or soft?
They're soft.
Oh, okay.
Like a yolk of a hard-boiled egg.
They're just really big, so they could cover most of your eye.
Yeah, they're still a pain to get in and out, though.
Oh, he just tripped over the body of the dead nurse. I like the idea of almost like this mummification that happened to Dr. Ramsey in the dead pit, which goes towards, the whole Egyptian thing and
Lovecraft.
Scarab Ring and Lovecraft and the shot through the eye kind of becomes almost like a third eye, right? Like almost like
like
there's so many weird,
like a bindi.
So many weird things about the concepts behind this movie. Like Gimel and Brett, who wrote it. They kept talking about like trauma, like childhood trauma and things that would make you go crazy or, be like Dr. Ramsey's, like the science and the magic, mixture and, like what he did to his daughter. Like, we don't know, but it could have been that when she was a little girl, that's the operation that was done to her, it cut her brain, it made her forget,
And I think it all comes together at the end. Oh, we got Dr. Ramsey showing the head. I got a picture of you in that head.
Yep.
Yeah. The head of the orderly. That's a great shot.
They said they had to film that a whole bunch of times to get it so slow motion so that you could see the face.
Yeah, I'm there. Like he's throwing the head and the camera is going, because you got to run really fast, in order to create slow motion.
Oh, right.
We did maybe 8 or 6, 8, 10 takes, to get just the right spin on the face so that the face could be facing the camera just before it bounces off. It was like a windows, like a mesh window screen, like when you open your window at night and you can feel the breeze, but there is a mesh
bugs
screen.
Don't come in.
Yeah, so bugs don't come in. We had a big mesh screen like that with a wood frame, and we mounted it to C-stands so it would be firm, and I would like hold on to that so that when he bounced the head off of it, it wouldn't fall down and hit the camera and stuff, and then I'd pick up the head and hand it back to him.
She's freaking out. She's seeing Dr. Ramsey, and this very, very jaded-looking nurse is holding her down and giving her a shot right now. I think this nurse really looks very, very, very jaded and matter of fact. Like, okay, lady, let's go back. You got a nightmare, and she's like really holding her down.
Ironically, that lady isn't even an actress. She was a friend. She was somebody who was part of the production, behind the scenes, helping with everything. Like, they call those people, PAs, production assistants.
Yeah.
But they were much more than that. Like Medi and these ladies were like the backbone of behind the scenes. They kept all the actor extras happy and fed and all that.
Oh yeah, you said you guys were cooking in that wing. You guys were cooking and sleeping because you guys were having 20-hour shoot days, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, in a 24-hour period, we would film from dusk till dawn, and the location just happened to be on the flight path of the San Jose airport. So it just so happened that, that the planes would be coming and going at a certain time, and we couldn't record sound during that time, but we could keep shooting, MOS, mit out sound.
Yep.
Yeah.
I found out that I used to live in California. I used to live in Los Altos, which was close to the Apple campus. You would have loved that, Ryan, because especially that new campus they built looks like a giant saucer.
Right.
And I was like, maybe I looked up to see where Milpitas Agnews Developmental Center was, and I found out there was like maybe 12 miles away from where I lived. So
yeah, was it right in your neighborhood?
I wish I had known and gone there and check it out, because Santa Clara is a big county.
You were living around here back then. I've lived here all my life.
I know. Yeah. That was back in 2013 until 2015. I was in California, in Silicon Valley.
I can tell a few anecdotal stories about when we were filming this. Of course, we were just talking about how we filmed all night long. We couldn't keep filming when the sun started coming up, because film was supposed to be taking place at night.
Sure.
But and the airplanes, making noise and stuff, so we couldn't shoot at certain times. But the crazy stuff, some of the crazy stuff that happened, like we were saying, that there's people that were still living there that were, developmentally disabled or whatever you want to say. Yeah. And early in the morning, when we're stopping filming, when the sun was starting to come up, we had on site, we had a place where the people, were cooking food for us, making us breakfast. And so we'd come over to that, building and sit down and start eating our breakfast. And right outside the window, there's no drapes or anything on these windows. And right outside the window, it's dawn. It's just the early dawn. And there are patients right outside the window, maybe 50, 100 feet away, having sex in the bushes.
Yeah.
Right outside the window of where we are. They would sneak out, I guess, and because I guess they can't when they're in their rooms,
Right. And they would get it on.
Yep. The crazies.
Damn.
And so that was one of the crazy things that happened. And then, another interesting thing was the fact that the place had like ghosts or, bad vibes, let's call it, in the building where they had the lunchroom, where the ladies were cooking our breakfast and stuff. I was also in that building on the ground floor down at one end, and it was the building was kind of like an H shape, and there were two stories, and up on the second story, like above my workshop area, there were little cubicle rooms, little small rooms that one of them was like a punishment room. And there was a chair that was bolted to the floor facing in the direction of the corner. And it had straps, to hold somebody, immobile, like a punishment room. And the whole room, had normal paint, but the corner where the person would be forced to look, all the paint in that corner was like flaking and burning, and looked like acid or something had been, like their vision, their view of that corner. They hated it so much that it caused the paint to peel in that corner. And so
probably also the moisture of the breathing, and probably people would be spitting at it and whatever.
Well, I think
horrible, horrifying.
They were kept, gagged and, everything. But the point is that that's just one example of the kind of feeling you would get, when you went into buildings and rooms and stuff. There were cold spots. There were spots where, Brett and Gimel were talking about in their commentary. There was like an operating theater area where a lot of the lobotomies and perhaps, unnecessary surgeries had been taking place. And, it was feeling very creepy and, like you weren't comfortable, in those rooms,
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah. Urban exploring, there's a lot of urban exploring videos on YouTube of people who go to like old hospitals and stuff, and I like watching that stuff. they have to use filter masks so they don't breathe in mildew
asbestos
or asbestos and stuff like that. But that's pretty cool. I'm seeing this is the scene now where she's been hypnotized again, and she's going to be possessed by the voice of Dr. Ramsey. And that's a pretty impressive section here, because she kind of did this on her own, right?
That's right. That's her own voice. Other than I think he may have added just a little bit of reverb or something, in post.
Sure.
But on set, she did that, and it freaked out, Jeremy Slate for real. He was like, whoa, because they didn't rehearse that. And as an actress, she was what you call, a method actress. Like in order to be all out of breath and stuff, she would literally go out and run around, the building and come back in, and then she'd be all like,
oh yeah, that's great. Oh, this is such a, and
she rasped out her throat doing that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is really hard on your throat. But I was going to say that she makes her way here. She's found wandering the streets, right, without any memory or whatever. And then she makes her way to this place. And it feels like that was all planned out, like the attraction, the way that she gets transferred to this location. It seems like it was all a long play remotely by Dr. Ramsey, right? Because at the end, I feel like the whole reason why she ended up in this place is because she was going to come back to take over, to become like a vessel. Yeah, his legacy, right? Legacy. Dr. Ramsey's legacy. She's going to take that over at the end.
And her presence wakes him up too, right?
Right.
Right. It's like a psychic, conjunction.
Yeah. And the stuff you were talking about, like the whole feeling inside the building and everything, I think at one point Brett Leonard in the commentary does talk about how he thinks the silver halide kind of is a nice way of capturing that psychic energy. I think he's talking about the whole, like, if the visual of the film and the stock they were using and the way the light gets recorded into it.
The way it gets captured. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look at all these ghost shows and stuff like that, and people who for years, like even in the original movie Ghostbusters, they're talking about like, hey, we got a PKE meter here, and like they try to analyze and quantify psychic phenomena and stuff.
There's
psychokinetic energy,
right?
There's some shots where the actress seems like she doesn't have makeup, and then there's other shots where she definitely looks like she's got makeup on. So that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, she was beautiful at that time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Even on the DVD, that was done in the mid 2000s, she does an interview, and I was still sighted back then, and I saw the video of her interview, and she still looked great.
Oh,
those are on the Blu-ray too. She looks almost the same.
Right, but now that's been 10 years ago already?
Yeah,
since that.
Yeah, because what's her name? Giselle, I think, or was on the interview. Yeah,
Jamil.
Yeah, and she's dead now. But
right.
Yeah, but she was on those interviews too. So they must have just transferred them over from the DVD to the Blu-ray.
Right.
Ed, you were saying about the patients and how that place was already kind of partially locked down in 1989. When was the last patient moved out of the East Campus closure?
I have no idea.
2009.
We walked away from that place and never looked back.
It says on the Wikipedia page that in March 2009, the last patient moved out of East Campus and the residential facility was closed.
Wow.
The East Campus provided outpatient clinic services until April of 2011.
Wow.
So that place still took a long time to close down completely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I knew somebody's mom who was working there, like in the administration building or something.
Oh, they also used this location for the movie Birdie with Matthew Modine.
That's right. In very similar type scenes of our, similar locations, like those cubicle rooms and stuff,
Yeah.
He was a mental patient. He thought he was a bird,
Yes, that's right. There's a scene of him naked, perched on top of his bed. And also Green Day recorded the music video for Basket Case at Agnews, which kind of makes a lot of sense.
Plus Deadlock, and I know that there were other films that were shot there as well.
Yeah. So I like that this guy is an expert in explosives, because that's going to come in handy
Definitely.
near the end.
Yep, it's his whole reason for being in the film, actually. But what's interesting is that, we could, in the script, that we could have him build a bomb that's big enough to blow up that whole water tower from items he found, like laying around in the construction shed and the toolboxes.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, it is possible, because if you know a lot about chemistry and stuff, you can make stuff out of fertilizer and, all kinds of stuff.
I got to listen to the episode you did with Decades of Horror 1980s, because I know you spoke about a lot of movies that you worked, starting with The Dead Pit, Amityville, A New Generation, Galaxis, which that was Galaxis was directed by Bob Keane, right?
No. It was directed by the guy who invented infravision.
Oh, okay.
Bill Mesa.
There you go. And then you also worked in Death Row, The Dead and the Damned, and Project Arbiter.
Yes. All good, fun projects. Yeah, I've been very lucky. Even though I'm no big shot, Rick Baker or nothing, it's like this film is, probably, I'm 63 years old. This film is probably going to be my, claim to fame. Even though people like, Clive and others, will say that, they don't want to be remembered only for Hellraiser.
Sure.
The fact is that, when all is said and done, that probably will be the film that everybody remembers him mostly for.
Yes.
And for me, if it's Dead Pit, I'm happy.
That's a Dead Pit. And the Dead Pit, when it was released in VHS, it had a nice little gimmick to the box, right? You want to tell us about that?
Sure. It was a 3-dimensional box. Like, in other words, the zombie on the cover was like puffed out. And back in the day, in the 80s, there was a handful of videos that were like that. There was another one called Black Roses that also had a puffed out 3-dimensional box cover. But this one had not only the 3-dimensional puffed outness, it also had 2 green LEDs on the zombie's eyes. And when you picked up the VHS box, you push a little button on the edge, and it would light those eyes up. And so that particular year, 1989, when the film came out, not only did Frankenhooker come out as well, and it had a gimmick as well. It had a sound chip that you push a button and it would say, "Want a date? Want a date?"
And Imperial also put out a Metamorphosis that was also a puffed out zombie with light up eyes.
Yes.
Yeah. They call that 3D electronic video packaging.
Yeah, which was, considered like a revolutionary idea back then, But also, Entertainment Magazine gave Dead Pit and Frankenhooker both awards for their boxes. So that was kind of cool.
It's too bad that the Blu-ray doesn't also have the puffy, zombie eyes.
Right.
Glowing, yeah. I remember that in the video store. Of course, my parents would never want to rent a movie like The Dead Pit, so I would always just play with the box and wonder what it was like.
I've heard that from so many people because, they were too young and, they couldn't get it. Their parents wouldn't let them and stuff, but they were so intrigued because of the box, the art.
Yeah.
It's hard to find now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a rare one where, like, if – how video has become a big deal. You're a collector, Joe.
Sure.
Those kind of boxes sell for a couple $100 now.
Yeah,
on eBay and stuff. With the big boxes that they used to make, the big oversized with lots of color.
If the battery's not dead.
Most of them are, but I do know a guy who's building a pinball machine, actually, a Hellraiser pinball machine. And you know how the Chatterer from NECA had a jaw that would go, nah, 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 nah. Its battery would die too, but he knows how to open them up and fix it. So,
are you talking about the 13-inch or whatever it was, Chatterer?
The 18-inch.
18-inch. Yeah, I never got those big ones. Those were like something I always wanted. Yeah, those I wanted to have those, but. Now they're practically impossible to find, but back when they came out,
I have them, and you might be able to buy them from me.
Sure.
Oh, there you go.
But it's a trip. Is this guy, who me and Nina just made a engineer from my mold, for him, and it's going to be a pinball machine. Like he's building a pinball machine, and he bought one of those 18-inch NECA pinheads and one of those 18-inch NECA Chatterers, and he cut them down so that they'll fit on his pinball machine. So,
wow.
it's going to be amazing. The pinball machine, when it's finished, he's getting custom art. He's got electronics. It's like the mouth is going to go, while you're playing the game and stuff.
But that's not Jonathan Q. I know he's really into pinball machines now. That's
No, I don't
all
know.
he's posting about on Facebook is repairing pinball machines. And he's
They
obviously
should make a
big
Dead
Hellraiser
Pit
fan.
one with glowing red eyes.
That would
Yeah.
be cool. A Dead Pit pinball machine.
So I see here in the makeup department in the credits, Helen Mason, assistant makeup artist. Do you remember her? Maybe it was maybe it was for other stuff. But this was for the Dead Pit cast and credits. I see names that we spoke about. I do see people like David Mosher, special makeup artist, sculptor, mold maker, fabricator. David Mosher and Michael Wick. Michael Wick was the one who painted the torso.
And Dave Mosher was one of his friends that he brought along. Mike Wick had this van that was all done up, with like sculptures on the sides of it and painting and stuff. And he came all the way down from Concord, California to Santa Cruz with two buddies and helped for free. All three of these guys came down and stayed for like at least a week, helping me with molds and, life casting and
This is also Nightmare on Elm Street. The way she's wandering around the hospital and seeing visions of the people who are already dead,
like wandering the halls of the high school.
Yeah.
Dr. Ramsey just revealed that he took her memory. Basically, people could lose their memory back in Project MK Ultra when people were being experimented on.
Exactly.
They found ways of removing people's memory. Through electroconvulsive therapy, shock therapy. But that was really traumatic. That was a really terrible thing to do to people.
Right, and turn them into sex slaves and stuff.
Yeah, they would give them acid and give them electroconvulsive therapy, and that would make them lose memory, like big chunks of memomy.
Right, when they were doing all those nasty things, they don't remember it anymore.
I love the slats, the light coming through the slats.
The Venetian blinds.
Yeah,
Venetian blinds.
It's really good. It looks good, especially in the part where Dr. Gerald is talking to Jane Doe. And I think at that point, Leonard was talking about how he likes to always put something between the light and the actors, so you get more interesting.
That was
lighting.
Marty Collins. He was our director of photography. He is the one who always wanted to put Venetian blinds up and smoke it up, and then put a light behind the Venetian blinds, and it would throw these great shadows. And it was like a film noir detective movie with that kind of lighting.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what happened to the mental patient. She just found his body. I got some names here, too, that are listed as model makers. I don't know if you remember them. They say Gary Rubel, special props as Dr. Dirt.
Yep. He was our still photographer.
Dr. Was he?
Dirt was our unit still photographer. And so every still photo you see anywhere, like on box art or, stills, like 8x10 stills or whatever, he's the one who took them. And
volumes, beautiful.
I have beautiful photos from him. He was a great photographer.
That's great. What about Guy Conrad? Because I didn't find anything else that Guy Conrad
goes
did.
All the way back, he and I are such good friends. I mean, this was done in the 80s, and I've known him since the 70s. He's the one that taught me my very first foam latex. We did it at his house in the oven at his mom's kitchen. He's the one that.
Oh, that's great.
He's part of Cenobium, like all the all those back issues of Cenobium with covers that were done by Guy Conrad.
That's right. Even though in IMDb he only has the Dead Pit as a credit. So did he work in other movies?
No. I mean, because he's my friend, because I pulled him in on things like Cenobium and stuff, he just was...
He didn't go into the professional part of effects making.
No, he never went into the real world of Hollywood special effects
Gotcha.
or, even local Bay Area low-budget stuff, except for with me. He did. We did lots of projects,
Of course. And I just found Caldonia on IMDb, but the only credit she has is for the Dead Pit. So she's put in as an extra intern.
Right. an intern with helping me in the workshop. We made all kinds of blood. We made all kinds of methylcellulose slime. Methylcellulose slime is a powder. It's a white, powder, and you have to boil big pots of water and slowly sift it in and stir it as you're doing it. And over time, it becomes thickened like slime, like, the Ghostbuster slime. And we had to make tons of that stuff every night when we were filming with zombies. That's why Brett was famous for yelling out, "Slime them up," because we had 2 baby pools that we bought at Toys R Us, plastic children's baby pools, and one of them was for blood and one of them was for slime. We would do the zombie makeup, and each person would be in their costume, barefoot, and they would step into this baby pool, and we would dump a bucket of blood or slime over their heads. First slime and then blood. Because the blood was supposed to be from their leaking brain wound, on top of their heads.
Right. Yeah. I noticed that they mostly have the white makeup on the face, the blood coming down the top of their head, and then all the slime around their dirty, dingy kind of lab gown.
Bodies, like they were they were thrown into the pit.
The dead pit,
Their bodies were all preserved by formaldehyde.
So I was looking through.
I learned how to do that by looking in research. There was, books like Smithsonian and National Geographic and stuff where you could find beautiful color photographs of like baby pigs and children, human children in jars that were in formaldehyde for decades, and so they had that fine wrinkles and stuff on them, and so that's what I based my zombie makeups.
I see. This movie had some wild titles around the world. I was looking at the also known part in IMDb, and so most of them are the Dead Pit in different languages. Sometimes it's the Dungeon of the Dead. In France, it was known as Reanimator Hospital, which kind of makes sense a little bit.
Yeah.
In Italy, it was called Incubo in Corsia, which means incubus in Corsia. I don't know what they're talking about in incubus.
Maybe her at the end when her eyes closed.
Could be, yeah. The Pit, and in Portugal, it was called the Dead Dungeon. I didn't even know this was in Portugal. But, so this had a limited. This had a limited
international release,
cinematic release.
Yes, theatrical in movie theaters.
Yeah. Nice.
I saw it in a movie theater. In fact, there was a screening in L.A. that was held at the Grauman's Chinese Theater, and like a midnight screening of cast and crew and stuff. And Wes Craven was invited, and he came. And after he watched it, he sent a really nice letter to the director that praised the film and said nice things about the special effects, which I of course appreciate. And then also, Joe Bob Briggs, the drive-in movie critic, he gave it, 2 Hubcap Awards that year.
Oh, cool.
One for Screaming, for Cheryl Lawson's Screaming. So she got her own Hubcap Award, the Hubbies. And then one for zombie makeup for me,
I see an article here where Joe Bob Briggs said, Best Worst Abreast in Drive-In nominations. And he does mention, of course, Best Actress. He talks about Linnea Quigley, Deborah Lee Funnis, Mary Beth Hurt, and, of course, Cheryl Lawson from The Dead Pit as the gal who has her memory cut out with a surgical ice pick, one of the finest screamers in movie history. That's great.
Yeah. She was great. I mean, that's how she got the job. We had an open casting call, and she showed up, and everybody was asked to give them a scream, and her scream was beautiful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Also, one other quick anecdote is we built a dummy, an articulated dummy that, like an articulated meaning that if it were to fall off a building, its legs would not bend the wrong direction. You know what I mean? Like it would only bend the way a real humans would, and its arms and stuff. And it was made so that when we went up to the top of that water tower, that the hero would fight with my friend Damon, the zombie Damon, and pick him up over his head and throw him off. And then we would drop the dummy from up on top. And unfortunately, all the zombie extras that night couldn't keep their damn hands away from the tower. Like the man who was in charge, the security guard who was in charge of the place after hours when we were there filming, we were all told, stay away from the bottom of the tower until the hour when we're going to do this, because otherwise we'll spook the guard. And sure enough, too many people, went out there and were like trying to take photos with their friends and things.
Yeah.
And it gave them a hint that we were going to be up and down in that tower. So we never did get to throw the dummy off the tower. But
we just saw a couple of zombies catch an orderly and crush into his skull and pull out his pulsating brain.
Oh yeah. That was if I'm not mistaken, that was our security guard, one of the armed security guards. And in the final moments before they rip his head open, he fires a few shots at them.
Did you? Is that a Jello mold for the brain? How do you make that brain? Is it just?
It's a Jello type mold. Yes, I mean you're not commercially available. I made the mold and everything,
right?
But it was a rubber flexible mold, and the gelatin was poured into the mold liquid, and it was frozen. It was kept in a fridge until it hardened, and then we would demold them. But man, I had to make dozens of brains, and every one of them had to have the proper color, and some of them I even made with like thread and veins and stuff inside, because you could see dimensionally into the gelatin.
Oh, here's Dr. Swan killing some brain cells of his own. By drinking Black
Scotch
Label.
Or
it's Black Label, I think. Johnny Walker Black
good.
Label.
Yeah.
And then I like that he grabs a pill off of his desk, takes it, and takes a swig of whiskey along to chug down the pill.
Right.
Yeah.
He's killing his brain already.
He gets the pills from the medical supply there.
Oh God.
Here's where they come up with the plan, I think. I think this is where we're going to see a dissolving zombie.
Yeah.
Oh,
the walls are
Yeah.
messed up, and some places they're patched in there.
Yeah, I think this is supposed to be in the building with the clock tower, the abandoned part of it.
Yeah.
With the reanimated guy that tried to kill the orderly. Now he's come back to life, and he's just waving his arms and flailing around.
One of the funny things is about, like all these zombie extras and, crazy situations of what happened. Like there's one night when this lady who owned a white Cadillac, she was part of our, crew, that was helping with manage the extra help and stuff. She was driving like maybe 4 or 5 zombies in full makeup, covered in blood and slime, in her in her Cadillac, back to the hotel, and she got pulled over by the cops. And he comes up to them and with the flashlight, and he's looking at them, he's like, "What's going on? Where are you? What are you doing?" And she had to explain, like, "I'm just taking these guys back to their hotel room. We're making a movie over there." He's like, "Okay."
Well, I'm guessing that California, they're probably used to San Francisco and LA. They're probably used to seeing movies being shot all over the place.
Not really. not in the 80s around where we were. I mean, this was, I'm sure there's a couple, but not like Hollywood,
When those 2 security guards before the zombies took their brains, they were talking about a little bit of banter. Donuts. Have you been to that new donut place? The Donut Hole. And, here's Mara killing Nurse
discussing
Tiger.
Sprinkles and
But it's funny because in the special thanks in the movie, there's a thanks to the donut exchange.
Yep. We got a lot of free stuff by giving people credit. Like we got soda, water, coffee, donuts,
That's cool.
I mean, that's called product placement. That's why Gimel was a good producer. Not only was she, making sure that everything was going smoothly, on set and everything, but she was also making deals and getting free stuff, all the time.
One of the producers must have been Jason's cousin. His name was Dave Voorhees. That's a nice family name to have.
Yeah, he was on Friday the 13th.
These zombies outside, they really remind me a lot of Night of the Living Dead. These ghouls.
Well, there's this one band, an actual rock and roll band that the 5 guys or 4 guys showed up together, and they asked, if they could play zombies and be in the same scene together. And I just looked at them and I thought, man, these guys physically resemble some of the zombies in the original black and white Night of the Living Dead. So I did them up like that.
Yeah, there's a little scene where
there's in their eyes and stuff.
Yeah,
there's a little scene where Chris and Jane are by the car and they get attacked by 5 zombies. I just saw that.
Right. Yeah. That's them. And they don't have so much slime and blood. They're more like a classic Night of the Living Dead Romero zombie. That was my tribute sort of to Romero zombies. That's cool. It's right in that scene, where he says, "For dead people, they sure are smart." There's some great lines.
Here's Nurse Kygar.
Scene.
Yeah, Brett wanted to pay homage to Kubrick, The Shining.
Oh, yeah.
In the bathroom scene when the woman comes out of the bathtub. And
that wide angle shot, very squared off, like facing the front of the person in the shot. That really, really works. I think that was Mara or Nurse Kygar.
So was she a zombie or was she just like messed up?
She was a zombie.
Mara's
she's holding a brain. I think she got Nurse Kygar's brain.
Yeah,
this scene here. This scene where Dr. Jerry sees the zombies walk into the hallway from the outside, and you got that floodlight coming in, and this is the money shot where you see Titty Zombie walking past.
Now, let me tell you the story about that.
Yeah.
That actress is a XXX porno actress who's been in hundreds, or at least 100, XXX porno films. And she was a friend of mine. She used to do Rocky Horror Picture Show in Berkeley. And her boyfriend, they weren't actually married, but they'd been living together for many, many years. Jay was the first melting zombie in the hallway where the crazy nun splashes him with holy water and he goes down and melts. That was her, the Titty Zombie's mate, and the reason why she did that, it's funny because Brett thinks that this other person who was on the production was the reason why she got involved in the film. And no, it's because of me, because we're old friends from Rocky Horror. And, I used to hang out with them and go to their apartment all the time. And they used to, one of their roommates was a girlfriend of mine for a while and stuff. So, that's why she did it, because I lost the real Titty Zombie. We did an audition casting call thing where we had a really beautiful woman show up with really big breasts, and she found out after the fact, after we cast her and molded her, and I molded her breasts and everything, that we were going to make her look rotted and ugly and horrible. And when she found that out, she bailed. So. Yeah, at the 11th hour, at the last minute. So luckily, I knew Marcia, and I knew she'd have no problem disrobing for film, and so I called her and Jay, and they both came, and they both played zombies, and they were both wonderful. And then later, I went on a radio show here in the Bay Area. There was a radio show called Alex Bennett Live, and he had a TV show too. And Marcia and Jay and myself, we all went down there, and I did a zombie makeup on Jay, live for the TV cameras. Do
you remember her name?
Her real name? Her real name is Marcia Gray, but her screen name was Shauna McCullough. The McCullough chainsaw. And, I forget why her first name was Shauna, but and she's, I could name off a bunch of porno films she's in. She was in The Horny Mooners. She was in, Beyond Thunderbone. She was in
Beyond Thunderbone.
Yeah, she's been in tons. She was in ones with Ron Jeremy. I mean, that's how long she'd been involved in the porn business.
Gosh, dude.
And ironically, she had a birthday party in L.A. when I was in L.A. working on one of the Amityville films. Yeah. And I went to her birthday party, which was at a nightclub, and there was a lot of other porno actresses there. And Ron Jeremy showed up as well.
Wild stuff.
Yeah, thanks, Shauna McCullough.
I wish she was longer in the movie, but it's just basically a couple of shots walking down the hallway.
Right. But, it's hard to get a straight girl from the street, who comes in for an audition.
It's cold and you're slimy.
I know.
So, yeah, she was a good sport.
She was a trooper. And, the thing is that even though technically she might have been made up to look ugly like a zombie, she's still a beautiful woman,
Dr. Swan is finally coming to terms with what he needs to do here. He's gonna give us a little bit of exposition.
Right. Actually, this is some great acting, I think. He gets to chew the scenery.
Yeah, he's really good. He's going to give us a little lowdown on Colin Ramsey.
Right.
And so you said the guy who played Ramsey passed away. I think Jeremy Slate passed away recently too, right?
Jeremy Slate passed away right after he recorded his interviews and stuff for the Code Red, DVD. And Danny Gotchnauer, he passed away just like what? Just within the past year?
Oh, yeah.
2022?
Gotcha.
I think.
Oh, let's see.
He has a Facebook page, or he did, right up until when he passed. And, that's how we found out about it, actually, through the Facebook page.
Last June 26th.
June 26th.
He was
Rest in
76.
peace, Danny. He was a great evil doctor.
He was really good. I love the
read
outside shots of the zombies just walking around, because the way that they are moving is just looks like everybody was doing their own zombie shuffle, but it's so good.
Yeah, people loved playing zombies, and every one of them, you're right, they had their own little shtick that they performed, And a lot of them were my friends. Like, in other words, they gave me, on the day that they had, like, the zombie auditions, they gave me the opportunity to view everybody's, and, they were recording them, I believe, on VHS tape. And then, afterwards we would have a conference and discuss who's, good, who was best and stuff. And they let me pretty much pick the, 6 or 8, what would be considered featured dead, And a lot of them were personal friends of mine, like this guy named Damon Foster, and you just could go down the list. And Erwin Swan, he was a great one. He looked like a great zombie.
So when this came out, the double DVD I have says this was the complete, uncut, uncensored version that was too violent for an R rating. We had the audio commentary with director Brad Leonard, the Gimel Everett, his ex-wife, and actor Jeremy Slate. And then you could see also some interviews like you were talking about with Jeremy Slate, Cheryl Lawson, Brad Leonard, Gimel Everett. I watch all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. There's a lot of interesting behind-the-scenes stuff, and especially Jeremy Slate's interview is a delight to watch.
Unfortunately, people like Danny, didn't get involved on that stuff. And, unfortunately, he didn't get to be, like in the limelight, like at a horror convention or something, like a Fango or something. I would have loved, for him. I did a Fango show here in San Jose back, right around the time when the film was being released on VHS and stuff. I was given a free table and a free hotel room, and I was billed as a guest, as the Fangoria Weekend of Horrors. But unfortunately, hardly anybody else, jumped on that bandwagon, and we didn't have Danny show up there as the evil doctor signing autographs and stuff. I would have loved that,
My Code Red double DVD says in the back, director Brad Leonard has created a cult movie that's perfect for a rainy Sunday afternoon, and that was from Fangoria.
Oh, that's a good quote.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fangoria was very kind to us. They gave us multiple articles. There's Fangoria had many different magazines. They had a poster magazine, and they put, Evil Dr. Ramses as a big, fold-out page poster. They had a magazine that was, called like the best of Fangoria, and Dead Pit appeared in there. There was a book that got published that was called The 100 Best Films You've Never Seen or something, and Dead Pit was in that book.
Yeah, Fangoria used to put out some really interesting publications every once in a while. I recently got that book, The Masters of Macabre, Clive Barker and Stephen King Fangoria book. Yeah. And it's just a bunch of interviews with Stephen King and Clive Barker. And a lot of them are stuff I've never read anywhere else. So that was pretty good. I think it was edited by Tony Timpone, who I think was editor of Fangoria at the time.
I've had that thing sitting on my bookshelf since it came out, but I never read it.
Sister Claire just dissolved one of the zombies here with her holy water.
Yes.
It makes you wonder, is she really blessing the water, or is it just any water would have done? But I guess, you have to say, well,
I'm sure it's because she's a...
water.
Yeah. If there's evil in the world, there's got to be good in the world, so that.
Well, they ask her, how are you doing this? And she says, I do the prayer, God does the blessing.
Right.
Yeah. So she's not a conventional one.
Yeah.
Right. She believes herself, and she's prays all the time, and she prostrates herself and whips herself and stuff. But you know what? This film was really popular in Europe. I mean, all the Italian and all the Roman Catholic countries, they love this movie.
Sure.
because of the holy water, and you know.
In a way, some parts of this remind me of that the Church, that movie, The Church.
Yes, the Italian film, The Church.
Yeah,
I agree.
What was the director of that one?
Sova, I believe.
La Chiesa.
Connected with Dario Argento. And
Michele Soavi. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I like the dungeon walls. Obviously, they're not real, but they're pretty well painted, and I like the texture of it.
Yeah, my friend Glenn Kimmel built that set, and art director Ransom Rideout designed it and blueprinted it, designed it on paper. And it was in the same building where my workshop was. It was built up on, a platform so that they could have the depth of the pit, look like it goes down into the ground. But where I was on my, workshop area was also up on a platform. You go up like a few steps, and there was like a flat cement area with an office back there, and that's where my workshop was. So I was right in the same room while that was being constructed, and when we did all the shooting, I was right in that same room.
I love that Sister Claire is giving them holy water she blessed from a bedpan.
Oh,
right. Yeah. It's the largest vessel of water they could contain.
So, we just came across the scene where Dr. Swan realized that he indeed killed him once, but he could not kill him again. He shoots at Dr. Ramsey, and then he gets grabbed by some zombies. And I love that scene where he says, "You're flawed, Gerald. I'm going to open you up and see what's wrong with you."
Oh, yes. Yeah. Great lines. I love those kind of lines.
So that water tower was actually there, right? Next to the hospital?
Really
okay. Because at one point they're walking around the base of it, and I was like, I wasn't sure if that was just a miniature created for the movie, but then when I see them walk around it, it does seem like it was there.
It's there. And in fact, one of the things, like I was telling you about how we weren't supposed to climb up all the way to the top, for safety and because there was a security guard on duty and stuff. There was a second water tower, a tank kind of thing. It looked exactly like up at the top of the water tower, and it was on the ground level. And it had a rail, and it was slightly, like maybe 2 or 3 feet up off, the ground. And that's where we shot the close-ups of my friend Damon approaching and attacking him, right after he was dicking around with the bomb, Oh, and another thing, too, the hand that lights the fuse of the bomb?
Yeah, is that you?
Yeah, it's my hands. Yeah.
Hey, there you go.
Right.
I got my own cameo.
You started the fire.
Weren't you also a zombie in this movie?
Nope. Not in this one.
You were too busy to be a zombie?
Yeah.
I thought they said that in the audio commentary.
No, but man, talk about being busy. If you look at either the script or just go through the film and think about like how many effects, like from the bullet hole in the forehead to, how many gallons of blood, how many gallons of methylcellulose,
how many brains,
how many hundreds. We literally at one night we had 150 zombies, through the makeup chair, and the wasn't like that every night. Sometimes the people who were zombies one night wouldn't come back because they hated it. They loved being a zombie, but they hated the cold and being drenched in methylcellulose slime.
Oh yeah. I remember that the San Francisco Bay Area, it can be really nice and warm in the daytime, but at night it gets really cold sometimes.
Yes. And we were filming always only at night, except for the internal, hospital stuff in the day room and, with actors talking and stuff. But zombies were always at night outdoors,
Nice.
And another thing that was interesting about, the zombie makeup and stuff like that was, it was not, your three-dimensional, foam prosthetics on every one of them. We had to create, like layers of, these are the most important ones. They're the most detailed with all the foam prosthetics. Then there's a secondary layer where these are ones with basic makeup, and a few rubber pieces. And then there's the far background that, hardly have anything. You just, some paint, some colors and stuff. But you never know. It's like it gets mixed up, and sometimes they'll shoot the people who are supposed to be in the midground in a close-up, So you kind of just always have to do your best and try to make all of them look as good as you can, But I devised a assembly line technique. We would have like maybe 10 people sitting in chairs in the hallway waiting, and then there'd be another 10 chairs where those people were being made up, and I would have a couple of assistants, helping me put their makeup on their legs and their feet and their hands, because they're wearing those gowns, so you can't have a gown where it shifts and all of a sudden you can see tan flesh beneath the gown. So we had to make sure that they were made up with pancake color, whitish flesh all the way up. Even sort of the shift at the neck, or if the shift of the leg or something, you could still not tell that they were tan colored. You know what I mean?
We got another a zombie, dissolved zombie coming up with the when she throws the bag of water. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the actual producer and financer of the film.
Was he?
There was initially, the film kind of was shot in stages. Initially, the film was around $100,000, like 98, something like that, 100,000. And then when that money ran out, we weren't quite done, and so they tried to raise some more money. So they got like another 50,000, and so total of principal photography was around 150,000. And then when that was all wrapped and we put the film in the film festival, they got several $100,000 more, which is then how we did the sound and the editing and the reshoot of the final makeup effects at the very end of the film that has a suck down head.
How much do you estimate it was effects budget for this movie?
Well, even Gimel said, I think it was around 5,000, because if you look at 3 weeks of every day, maybe about $100 a day, and you do the math, it's around 5,000.
Wow.
I love the scene with Dr. Swan and the needles going into his brain. That is such a good thing. And you were underneath that table, right?
Right, and in fact, I kind of directed this scene, because by the time we shot this scene, Brett Leonard had been up for maybe 20 hours in a row or so. And, I don't know if any of you guys have tried to stay up that long, but
sure.
If you're just sitting there and you're not actually doing something or moving or whatever, you'll just go and start sleeping, And so he was sitting Indian style on the floor in my room, where we were filming, because that's where the table and, the makeup chair was and everything. So he, Dr. Swan went directly from my makeup chair with the brain on and everything into the set with the table, and Brett was just losing it. He was not able to keep awake while we were shooting those needles going into his head. And so when it got to the part where, I'm under the table and I'm saying out loud, directing, because we're not recording sound, but, he's making his mouth move and everything, like later on he'll re-record the noises he's making. But I was telling him, like, okay, now, you're a little boy and your mom is mad at you. And so, he'd be like, oh, mommy, I'm sorry, And then I'd say, okay, now, you're having sex and you're about to orgasm. Now you're orgasming. And he'd be like, he'd make all these sounds and do all this acting, because, I was just throwing out stuff like that to him. And, I actually had to get up and put the needle in, because I'm the one that knew, how deep it could go before it would actually poke him in the head, and the actor, who's playing the evil Dr. Ramses, he would just stand aside for a minute while I got up in there and fixed it, and then step back away, and he would put his hand up to it like he just put it in, and then pull his hand away like he just inserted it, So with editing.
Yeah. She's getting the flashbacks as she goes up the ladder. So she's starting to get flashbacks of herself as a little girl dressed in a red dress. And I think this is kind of triggering her memory, right?
Right.
Oh, look at all the zombies coming down that pathway in the mist. There's such a wild bunch of zombies.
Fog machines were our friends.
Oh, yeah. But the way that Dr. Ramsey nonchalantly just knocks over the gurney with the remains of Dr. Swan.
Yeah.
And he's got like 20 needles in his head. He's like, all right, this guy's done.
Yeah, he just dumps him into the pit. And then, later on he scoops his brain out, and there's a scene where he pulls his brain out from behind his back, and it's got all the needles in it still.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he says, Dr. Swan wanted to give you a piece of his mind.
Oh. She is remembering. She's been in this place before. She's remembering the hospital and running around the grounds as a little girl.
Right.
It's all going to come
why
together.
Dr. Swan wouldn't have remembered her from when she was there before.
He may not have been there. It's like that was his wife. His wife. You don't see the little girl and him. You can see how he's pretty young looking in those scenes.
Yeah.
And Swan, could have been not even there yet. At the hospital.
Oh.
We got a little bit of a hellbound situation here, right, with Dr. Chenard
Right.
and
Exactly.
the patients. I had to
The
throw that
mind
in
is the
because
labyrinth.
yes,
The mind is the
because
killer.
even Dr. Ramsey has his own little monologue about here it is. Here's the brain with the needles. He wanted to give you a piece of his mind.
And this would have been just 1 year after Hellbound, right?
Yep.
And I think that there's a monologue that Dr. Ramsey says, like, the brain is a parasite. It's what kills us. It's the clock in our head.
Right.
Yeah.
Which makes no sense, but okay, sure.
It gives you his crazed, methodology of why he thinks the way he does and stuff.
I like how the guy is now stuck in the tower and all these zombies are climbing up. That's really the part where you get, like, the fear of the zombie is that in large quantities, even slow zombies can overwhelm you and trap you. And then they'll just tear you apart.
So I forget, how did she bless the water in the cistern on the tower?
She was praying outside.
Oh, okay.
Praying at the window. She was praying at the window.
Yeah.
Right. And the tower is right outside the window. And we did this, kind of cool rack focus shot, through the glass into the tower, I one of the other things that I wanted to talk about was, when we did the auditions, there was a bunch of people that, showed up and wanted to be zombies. And, they all of them, had their own zombie walks and stuff. But we would do, all night filming, and a lot of these people, had to go to work the next day. And they were cold and wet, and they would not come back. They would show up one night and then never come back again. So that was a problem. We would have diminishing zombies.
All right, we just saw your hands lighting the fuse.
Yep, that's my hands. And at the time I was kind of a new wave, punky kind of guy, and I had bracelets on my wrist that I hadn't removed for years. And so because I had to match, Stephen Gregory Foster, I had to cut those bracelets off,
Oh.
It was okay, I don't care. It was for good cause.
I saw a lot of back behind the scenes pictures of you, and you got your NASA hat, and you had your long hair. Yep.
I had a Batman hat. I had Alien Nation hat.
There's a picture of you blowing blood coming out of the top of a zombie's head.
Yep.
And Mara is also blowing on another hose.
Tube. Yeah, another tube. Yeah, we did a lot of tube.
Her real name is Sarah Ramsey.
Right,
yes.
The little girl. So she's Jane Doe, a.k.a. Sarah Ramsey. And, ironically, like, since me and Nina have been regurgitating all this stuff, we've been thinking about, like, what could a script be for a sequel or a prequel? And I was thinking, like, we even thought of, like, wouldn't it be interesting, if she had a twin girls, that we never see or hear about. But if you listen to Dr. Swan in the office scene, he says children, like as if the doctor had more than one child.
More than one. Okay, yeah.
Right. And, little tidbits, hints like that for how to come up with another script, like show the way he got the scarab ring, his exploration into the occult,
Dr. Ramsey is dissolving right now. He's we just saw the come back up with the white eyes, and while the miniature is flooded, it's like it's just water going everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's going into
model, the model of the staircase, I built that model.
It looks great.
Oh, really? I thought that was the actual staircase.
Nope, it's a miniature.
Wow.
You see all the water just in slow motion. It was probably shot at like 60 frames a second or something like that.
No, like 160 frames a second. Yeah, to make it slow motion, you got to go fast.
And then it goes into the pit and sanctifies it.
Right, exactly. But one of the cool things is even for that shot for the pit, that's a model too. It's a big model, but it's a model. Like, in other words, the pit itself on set, is big enough for like 6 or 7 people to get in the pit and be all on top of each other and stuff. But that is an empty pit. There's no dead people in there, and so it doesn't give away the scale. But it's about the size of like a baby, a children's bathtub, like a baby bathtub.
She's just
the fake rocks around it and everything, just like the real one does.
I like the slow pan into the face of Sarah, and then she opens her eyes after she placed the scarab ring, and she's got Dr. Ramsey's eyes.
Right, and so who knows? Maybe his heart and soul and brain has transferred into her.
Yeah, like so she was his daughter.
Did the ring make him evil, or was he already like evil before he put the ring on?
Like in Lovecraft stories, the person who begins to delve into the occult.
Yeah, I see him like a corrupt doctor turned necromancer.
Why
did
Uncle Frank go after the box? How did he even know about the box?
So I guess that then the question is she going to use the powers of the ring for evil or for good?
Well, what do you think?
For evil.
I don't know.
Definitely for evil.
The only hint that we got about it is that her eyes are red.
Generally speaking, when somebody's eyes glow red, they're usually evil.
Yeah, and it's a great hook for a sequel that never happened.
And if your eyes turn into like pinwheel spirals, then you're hypnotized.
Right.
Director of special effects Ed Martinez.
Yay.
Right, which that title actually doesn't exist. Like if you go to
the battery's getting low.
Okay, if you go to IMDb and look up all the different titles of the kinds of classifications that you can have, like director of photography, director, writer, all that kind of stuff. The director of special effects did not exist. There are effects, special effects like optical effects, and there are makeup effects, but because I did it all, I did pyro, I did miniatures, I did makeup effects, I did, a little bit of everything, so I consider that to be the director of special effects,
That's cool.
So who is Dr. Dirt?
He's the photographer. He's
that's
Gary
right.
Rubel.
Gotcha.
Ironically,
it was about a backhoe or something, wasn't it?
No, he was known. He has a piece of property, and he owns like a Jeep. I mean, like a tractor backhoe with a fork. One of those dig into the dirt forklift things. And so he's a dirt mover, and but he's also a wonderful photographer. He was the unit still photographer and a great collaborator. Like I worked with him on my tests. Like he's the one who would come along and help me photograph when I was doing a test of a meltdown or when I burned the chest, for that torso. And, he gave me all the photographs, for use on the DVDs and stuff, So I still have all those. And,
okay, that's the end of the credits.
Okay. And like I said, thank you so much to all the special effects helpers that I had. They're all in the credits. Some people only came for one day, but we promised if you came and helped us, you would get a credit. And so ironically, there were even friends of mine that bailed on me. They came for one day and then never came back to help me again. But they defected. They went to the acting side and they got in the film. There's like one guy who's smoking a cigarette, and he looks really weird. He's got his hair is all wild and he's playing a patient, and he was one of the people that, I asked him as a friend to come and help me with the special effects. And, he came for just like one day or so and then he bailed and went to the...
Was that the guy at the beginning saying, "Doc, hold my calls"?
No, not him.
Oh, okay.
I didn't actually know him before production. But another one of the things I was going to say about the runes that were carved into that guy's chest is, I drew those out on a piece of paper so that I could repeat them if I needed to for continuity. But I also, did the research to look up what those symbols meant. And, I got them out of I have a copy of a fake, Necronomicon. And, I have a copy of, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And I'm a collector of lore and grimoire type books and things, and so I delved into my collection for research on that sort of thing because me and Brett both wanted for there to be a bigger budget so that we could do, like, remember he's talking at one point about how there's skulls and stuff embedded in the floor.
Yep.
in the chamber. It's because we both wanted to have, like, you know how like H.R. Giger's paintings and stuff look? Like, I wanted to have like whole skeletons and, you know, full of like in Nightbreed, how that one wall of all the weird skulls of werewolves and, you know, half humans and, you know, creatures. And you remember that big wall of skulls in Nightbreed?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to have shit like that.
Like an ossuary chamber.
Yeah. But, you know, we couldn't afford it. You know, I had maybe 6 or 8 skulls in the whole film total.
Yeah.
But,
well, you know, that's the budget. $5,000 for all the effects is even for the time not a lot of money. But you did.
I mean, that was my paycheck. You know what I mean? Like, in other words, there was some money out of that was used for purchasing of plaster and clay and actual makeup. You know, pancake makeup and stuff. But, you know, I was getting about maybe $500 a week or something like that, you know.
Nina, how many times did Ed make you watch this movie?
This last few weeks. Just a dozen. Just a little dozen.
Wow.
Work you did on that 8-minute?
I can't hear you, Ed.
Oh, that's because he handed the mic.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, we did this, getting ready for this, made us start looking through all the archives. And so we decided to make a little mini documentary that mostly focuses on Dr. Ramses. But, I went through a lot of very old file folders of digital stuff, and I'm really glad that it was all pre-scanned. Like, we didn't have to do much with scanning in anything new.
Yeah, when I was sighted, I took a long time and went over to a friend's house who had a scanner for like 35 millimeter color slides, as well as, you know, all those regular photographs.
Yeah. So, let's see. Yeah, it took us about, I guess, maybe
2 or 3 weeks.
It took, 2 or 3 months, I think, to do the documentary, actually.
Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah. I love the fact that we get to see a lot more pictures of the makeup with Dr. Ramses in very good quality. And I saw
before seen. Never
right.
Some of them never
and we put that in our show notes for last episode and this one.
Excellent.
I actually really enjoyed, I think I liked it a little more. You know, that makeup that you did for Dr. Ramsey, where not just his mouth, but most of his face is kind of like dark blue and wrinkly and, you know, kind of
where his teeth are visible through the lips.
Yes, not just that, but it's like an intermediate stage that you were working on that it looks like his face is more corrupted, not just around his mouth, but his whole face is more corrupted. And that is in that 20-minute or 19-minute
ending. Yeah, the
reel
ending of it.
That's in the Code Red DVD. Yeah. And there's shots of that near the end of the movie that you get to see a little bit of what you had made up to that point with the actual dissolution of Dr. Ramses,
right?
And the bubbling. I like the fact that when you're shooting the melting, what was that, wax or something that was melting off of the.
I tried everything. I used wax. I used gelatin. I used, you know, every trick in the book. And
one of the cool things that happens is after the flesh melts, whatever pools inside the orbits of the skull is bubbling. Looks like the eyes are bubbling. It's fantastic effect. I really wish that was in the last ending of the movie.
Yeah, you know, that was done with, I took like a ping pong ball and cut it in half, and then I used white gelatin and put it inside the ping pong balls for a mold, and then I was able to pop it out of the ping pong ball in one piece and then set it inside of a skull that was made out of plaster, you know, a rigid, hard material that won't melt, and you know, painted it first, you know, and then put these white orbs inside that will melt, and then also the teeth. I had all these individual teeth that were glued into the jaw area with pink, you know, gum colored and red gelatin, so that when it melted, you know, you would see the teeth falling out a little at a time, you know, one by one, and then you'd see the eye orbits, you know, bubble and pus and glow and
yeah. It works really well, and the low budget and the wardrobe also works well for the budget that you guys had, especially, considering the main actress she spends most
panties.
of the in panties and a crop top, and then a short, nurse outfit with white shoes, which apparently, you said that lady would bring in hospital gowns and all that stuff. So that even cut more
That was
money.
Caledonia. Thank you,
Yeah, Caledonia. Yeah. So good stuff. I really particularly enjoy that. I love the makeups. I love the not lobotomized, but the exposed trepanning. Is that what they call it? Trepanning of like trepanation, right? You make it look a little more like elliptical, like they cut like a shape out of the skull.
I did my research and then I found all kinds of different brain surgeries where they would, like one of them toward the first part of the film, it almost looks like a vagina. It's like it's a big flap. They cut a big incision and then pull it back and use like fork type prongs to hold the flap of skin open. And then you get the skull under there. And then they cut into the skull by drilling a series of circular holes and then connect the holes dot to dot so that they can remove that plate of skull to get to the brain. And so throughout the film, I tried to mix it up and have various types of brain surgeries visible on various zombies. Like Caledonia has her own type of brain surgery versus, that guy that's on the table with all those runes on his chest.
Yeah, who has like a bald head, but it looks like someone shaved his head to do the surgery on him at the beginning.
Right.
That's
all
right.
Of course, what you got to do,
Yeah, of course. But really enjoyed it. Brett Leonard went on to do a lot of better, bigger things like Lawnmower Man and Virtuosity and a whole bunch of other things. He even did an IMAX film about T-Rexes.
Yes, I went to the IMAX theater and saw that. And that year, he was at San Diego Comic-Con at a table signing posters from T-Rex. So I walked up to him, he gave me a poster and signed it.
Yeah, T-Rex
theater.
Back to the Cretaceous, which is considered one of the only IMAX movies that is actually pure entertainment. It's not like a documentary or anything. It's actually a short film, right?
Yes.
An adventure film.
And it has, some decent name actors and stuff, people from, television stuff like ER and things.
It's funny because you also did some work for a Mammoth National Geographic special as well, right? Back in San Francisco?
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
I was employed by the Discovery Channel on multiple projects. They had a what they would call the flagship store here in San Francisco at the San Francisco Metreon, center, and they had, 1 year they were doing the Walking with Dinosaurs, and I made dinosaurs for them for their window display, and then 1 year they were doing the Raising the Mammoth. They found a real frozen in the ice, I don't know where it was, in Siberia or someplace, where they chopped it out of the ice in a solid block and then lifted it with these tremendous helicopters and brought it to a controlled environment where they could slowly melt the ice away until they got down to the really, full
juicy center,
woolly mammoth.
They got to the juicy center, mammoth jerky.
And so I made a woolly mammoth, and there's a little film about me making it on my YouTube channel.
Awesome. Oh, we'll link to that as well.
People. Go look at my YouTube channel.
And we're on Rumble now, too.
Yes,
oh, you are?
Channel.
Yeah. Ed Martinez on Rumble.
We put all the same stuff that's on my YouTube channel.
It's a podcast platform.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Well,
wait, is it video then?
Yes.
Yeah, it's video. It's like YouTube.
Rumble.
Right. So it's not a podcast platform then?
No, but you
some
can make
podcasts,
you can
like
make
YouTube,
a video podcast, like yours.
Yeah, no, I know. It just
and
they said it
put
was
it
a
up on
podcast
Rumble.
platform, so that made me think it was audio.
Well, Rumble is a podcast platform. I mean, I've listened to podcasts on Rumble.
On Rumble?
Yeah.
Right, but you can watch it like YouTube.
As well.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Oh, and before we go, I want to just call out that one of the Dead Pit alumni, Guy Conrad, was also very involved with Cenobium as an artist.
Oh, I mentioned that.
Oh, you
Right,
did?
covers
I
and
didn't
stuff,
catch that,
right?
sorry.
Pinups and stuff.
Yep.
Guy Conrad. He
Can't mention him enough. He's
extra shout out.
he was so instrumental in my development, my education. Like that. The first time I ever did foam latex was in his mom's kitchen.
Well, I tell you what. I mean, are you still in touch with Guy Conrad?
Sure.
Oh, cool. Maybe we can talk about Cenobium or make a little article about Cenobium. Maybe he's got some stuff he still can provide or insight or something like that. That would be an interesting project for the future.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. I think we pretty much said everything that...
Yeah, I would just like to thank everybody, who was involved, in my effects crew,
Yes.
and also say homage to all the people, rest in peace, who have passed, who are no
That's
longer
right.
with us. Some of them were so instrumental, so important, to the success of this project, this film. And, Brett and Gimel talked a lot about how this was like a family, like a tribe, and it's so true. I'm friends with so many people from this to this day, and I involved many of my good friends like Damon Foster and, Guy Conrad and Tim Azaria and people like that in it, from the beginning, when I got involved, I got them involved,
That was a really fun movie. It was really entertaining. And I want to thank you guys for your time to join us today and give us a little insight on this really fun zombie movie, part of our A through Z horror commentary series. And so what's coming up next, Ryan?
Coming up next, we've got Hellraiser Quartet of Torment coverage. We've got news episodes again. We'll be returning to Jericho Squad 77. More A to Z commentaries with Z for Zombie and Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. Plus, more Hellraiser comics discussion. The Boom Hellraiser
I'm enjoying those, because I can't read those comics anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So listening to you guys discuss them is my guilty pleasure now,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's really fun talking about them. And and
being able to see them in my mind's eye based on your verbal descriptions of the art and stuff is great.
Thank you.
There was a TV show that the woman Connie Chung, who works for CBS News and stuff.
Right.
She was an interviewer. She had a program on primetime, and they did a segment on Joe Bob Briggs and his Hubcap Awards, and that was the year that Dead Pit won those 2 Hubcap Awards. So
yes,
I have a
best zombie flick.
I have a VHS tape with that segment with her interviewing Joe Bob Briggs and him showing clips from Dead Pit and talking about it and stuff. It was great.
Yeah, you got to digitize that stuff.
I know.
We've been searching for it.
It's 35 years old.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm old. Me old.
IMDb says that movie premiered in Toledo, Ohio. I'm not sure if that's accurate. The U.S. premiere.
We did premieres in L.A., at the Grauman's Chinese. And
oh, really?
For cast and crew. And I told you that Wes Craven came to that screening.
That's right.
As well as a couple of other actors, some known actors. I can't remember their names off the top of my head, but, they were on TV shows and stuff at the time. And, so it was a great screening. It was fun to be seeing it in the Grauman's Chinese Theater of all places.
Sure. Was back in the 80s, did they already have like those guys dressed as characters outside that area, or that came later?
No, in the 80s you could still find like an Elvis or
that's
like
funny.
Superman or.
All right, sounds great. Well, thanks guys for joining us, and I hope you guys have fun. And as usual,
I hope everybody had fun and enjoyed this episode. I did.
And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. You can chat with us on our Facebook BarkerCast listeners group, our Facebook page, Twitter, or our Discord server. The best way to support us is to buy our book, The BarkerCast Interviews, Occupy Midian, available in hardcover on Amazon and ebook on Amazon and Apple Books. Fundraiser 10 is all about Patreon this year. Become a patron to get access to exclusive stuff, pick an episode topic, and maybe even get cool stuff in the mail. You can also buy a t-shirt on our TeePublic store. Go to teepublic.com and search for BarkerCast. Opening music by Ray Norrish. End credit music by Matt Furness.
Thanks for listening.